grab me a beer and grab him a coke. We about to sit for an hour, bullshit and tell jokes. And please don't mix it up, cause he done sobered up. Brandon T Comedy on your social media feeds. And Brandon Taz if it's your ex drinking buddy. Brandon Taz if it's your ex drinking buddy. Brandon Taz if it's your ex drinking buddy. Brandon Taz if it's your ex drinking buddy.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into another edition of Brennan Tassif is your ex-drinking buddy. I'm your host, Brennan Tassif. If you're new to the show, quick rundown of the show. I used to be everyone's favorite drinking buddy. It was one of my favorite things to do was hang out with friends, do drugs, get drunk, and reminisce about crazy stories. I am sober now, but that is still one of my favorite things to do, hang out with people and reminisce about those good old days. Normally, I would be joined by a guest. This week is no exception. Joined by New York comedian, host of the Hell Yeah Comedy Show every Sunday at Cellar 77, Mr. Cody Lewis.
Yo, how's it going? Where's the applause, you know? There it is. Thank you.
What's going on, man?
Nothing. How are you?
Good. So this is the first podcast you've ever done, you told me.
Correct. Yeah.
This is exciting.
I know. I'm a little nervous. It's chill. We're
just going to talk, ignore all the recording equipment, and we're just going to have a conversation.
Hell yeah. I'm in.
So plug everything that you want to plug, your social media. Like I said, you You have the Hell Yeah Comedy Show every Sunday.
Yeah.
Let everybody know what's going on.
So I'm part of Hell Yeah Comedy. We have a show every other Thursday in Williamsburg. Then we also host 3 mics, open mics. Those are fun.
You have 3 open mics.
3 open mics, yeah. And then we have the show we just started 2 months ago.
Okay.
Yeah, but that's been going really well.
Where can people find all the information for it?
You can go to cody.d.lewis. That's my Instagram. Or hellyeah_comedy. That's our Hell Yeah Comedy Instagram.
Okay. And that's all Instagram?
Yeah.
All right. Awesome.
Yeah.
And so before we started recording, we did have a slight conversation, but I wanted to save it for the podcast because you and I, we're not the best of friends. We kind of just met when I moved up here a couple months ago and started doing the open mic scene, and that's how I kind of met you. And then I saw you when I had the audition at Broadway.
Yeah.
For anybody listening, that was a bonus episode of the Patreon. I talked about that audition and how I thought I bombed it, but then you gave me great news, and you're like, oh, no, you're not going to know if you passed till you talk to him on the phone.
Yeah.
Because the email did not say, it was just basically like, thanks for coming out. You can call me next week.
Right.
And I was like, I didn't get it. I failed miserably at life. And you were like, oh, no, you're not going to know till you talk to him.
Yeah, I hope I'm right, because I don't... Fuck.
I'm going to call him and be like, hey, man, what's up? And he's going to be like, nothing. You did not get back. And I'm going to be like, motherfucker.
I just feel like I'm at Broadway every Saturday. I do seating there, so I see everyone do the industry room. And
so you've seen a lot of people come through there.
I see, yeah, it's like new comics. Everyone I see in the scene, they all come through there because that's like the only bringer where you actually get spots from it.
Yeah,
so
and
that's actually like a good.
I have actually talked about that, and like I said, we talked about it on the bonus episode. But that is everywhere else. It's basically recommendation only. Like to get past at a lot of like the Cellar, the Stand, or anywhere like that. You need to do a recommendation. And so being new to the area, someone had mentioned, call Rich at the industry room.
Yeah.
Because he literally was super cool about it on the phone. And then he was like, well, it's a bringer show, but there's a lot of comics, so it's normally pretty packed. And if you do well, there's no more hoops to jump through. Like then you'll get a spot.
Right.
And so that's why I was super excited about it. But I saw you there. And so you've seen all sorts of... You've seen good, bad.
Yeah. Well, dude,
because there were some people there who were like, "Oh, it's my second time doing comedy."
Right.
And I was like, "This is what you decided to do with your second time?"
Yeah, it's fucking crazy because you watch so many people. They think that's how you get into comedy, is just do a bringer show, I guess.
Yeah.
And you watch people bomb all the time there.
Do you have what's the worst? Have you seen it like where people go up and just no laughs the whole time?
Not at Broadway, but there's a club called Dangerfields.
Yeah, I know Dangerfields.
Yeah, so they shut down, but I did a bringer there once, and a guy brought 15 people, and his first time doing comedy, and first time, and went silent for 5 minutes, like nothing.
And he brought 15 people,
like all his coworkers, all his friends,
and nobody laughed.
But it wasn't like he wasn't even giving space to like where someone could laugh. Like, it wasn't even funny enough where you're like, I know he's trying to joke.
Yeah.
Like, he was just like rambling and doing voices, and it was.
Oh, so there was no like timing or cadence or anything.
Nothing.
It was just, oh my God.
But 5 minutes of silence.
And that's a long 5 minutes.
Yeah.
When I was doing the show, it's funny because I record every set. So I went back and listened to it, and I was even stepping on my own jokes, and I've talked about this before on some of the other episodes, but I was so much like, I know this 5 minutes is really good, but I have to get this whole 5 minutes out. Because I end on a story about how I got the scar on my forehead, but it's a 2.5 minute story. So I was like, I have to time this perfectly, or else I'm not going to be able to end the story.
Right.
So I was kind of bulldozing over some laughs where I was just like, all right, I'm glad you guys think it's funny, but like I got to keep going. And that was the one thing I was talking to Full Charge about, where he was like, yeah, but if you're ever in that situation, it's better to just let the room breathe, and like let people laugh, because you're not going to get dinged on a show like that because people are laughing too much.
Right.
If anything, you're going to get dinged because you cut people off from laughing to do another joke.
True.
So that was an interesting learning learning point that I got from that environment, was because it was packed.
Yeah, dude. I mean, and I feel like a lot of people who come in there say that, where they have their 5 minutes down, and then the crowd's almost too good.
Yeah,
they're laughing, and it throws them off, and then they always the light goes on, and they're like, I got 1 minute left. I could try to throw something in, or I should just end it. Because they also like kind of scare you about running the light, right?
Yeah, they make it very. They're very adamant about. The light goes on, you have 60 seconds. Once the light starts blinking, you have 10 seconds. If you don't get off by then, you're completely disqualified.
Right.
And so I saw the light go on, and I was like, perfect. I'm wrapping up this story right now. Because I've been doing comedy a long time, so I was like, I know where I'm at. So I was like, all right, perfect. The light came on right when I needed it to. But then I felt like it held at that solid light for longer than a minute. I was like, why is he not blinking it? Like, I was like, is he, because, the host is the host of the show. So he's like in the back talking and like hanging out.
Right.
So he's not like super strict on keeping the time. And luckily, when I got off stage, I checked my phone because I recorded it, and it was at like 6:15. But I had turned it on before I went up, and then I had turned it off after I walked off stage, went to the back. So I was like, all right, that should be right at like 5 minutes.
Right.
So it worked out all right, but it's stressful because it's not a situation where it's like, yeah, we're just doing a show, we're having fun. It's especially for me, just moving to New York, it's like, this is your one opportunity for right now.
Right.
Like, you're going to be doing open mics for the next 6 months if you can't get in this room.
Yeah.
And it's terrifying.
For sure. And that, I mean, I don't know how big of the rooms you've done before, but for a lot of people, that's like way bigger than any room they've ever done.
Yeah.
Which obviously just adds to how freaking scary it is.
Well, and it's a lot of fun because I've done bigger rooms before, but sometimes it's ambush comedy. You know what I mean? Where it's like, surprise, we're doing comedy at this bar. You thought you were going to watch the game. We're doing comedy. But so those have been like bigger. Like, I did a show one time at a brewery, and it was a Saturday night. And half the crowd was there for comedy, and the other half was just there because it was a Saturday night in Melbourne, Florida, and they went to this brewery.
Right.
But there was like 200 people there.
Oh, wow.
But most of them were not there to see comedy. And it's a brewery, so it's tall ceilings. It's like a fucking warehouse. And you get up there, and you're like, oh, God, like, this is terrible.
Yeah.
So I was definitely not. Damn. Like, when I got in there and everyone was, like, excited to see comedy.
Right.
Like, I heard so I went into the room because you get to go in like the comic before, and there was one comic, Jill, who was killing. She was really funny. And then the next guy up, he was okay, but like from the audience reaction, you'd think he was murdering. And his jokes were good, but like at the same time, I was kind of like he seems newer.
Right.
And so I was like, I'm gonna fucking destroy this room.
Yeah. And I do feel like part of when because there are so many new people, when the comic's actually good and they get up there, it's like the crowd's like even more on board because like, we just watched fucking four guys who didn't know what they're doing, and now you know what you're doing, and so it fucking the room pops off like it's fucking
it was
dope.
A lot of fun, and it was definitely it was a great experience. But let's not talk about me anymore. Let's talk about you. So you told me you've been doing comedy for 3 years.
Yes.
You've been in the city for 7.
Yep.
Where are you from originally?
San Luis Obispo, California.
Oh, so you came all the way across.
Yeah.
What brought you to New York?
I like graduated school in San Francisco, and I didn't really
college or high school?
college.
Okay.
I went to film school, but I didn't really want to do film, so I just kind of moved to New York because I knew I liked it.
Okay.
So then I just basically partied, worked in a restaurant for 4 years.
Yeah.
And then I was like to a point when I was like, I had some moments where, I mean, this ties into everything, but I like had sex with some girls that not that my standards are that high, but they just weren't girls I'd normally have sex with.
Yeah.
And one of them, she like fell on my PlayStation and broke it. So that was like this whole thing. And then I also got 2 drunk tattoos.
Oh yeah, we're gonna get into all that.
Yeah. So anyway, I was just feeling like, I'm like, what am I doing in New York? Like, I'm doing all this, just getting drunk.
So you're saying when you got here and you were like partying and just doing dumb shit.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
then after a few years, you were kind of like, what am I doing?
Right. And then so there's an open mic, but like there's a bar beneath my house, and there's an open mic there. So one day I was just like, I'm just gonna fucking do it. And so have
you always been a fan of comedy, or were you?
That's the thing, is like I've always wanted to do comedy, but I never like watched much of it besides like just a few specials here and there.
Yeah.
But I just always like to make people laugh, so it's something I wanted to do. And like even when I was like 16, I had a set written out, and I was gonna go do it in my hometown, and I wimped out. And then when I first moved to New York, I had a set written out, and I'd like practice it to the walk to and from the train, because like a 10-minute walk.
Yeah.
And then I went to an open mic to watch. And then I just wimped out. And then I waited another 3 years.
Jeez.
Yeah. So then I hit that low point. And then so that I'm like, I'm going to do a mic tonight. And I just wrote the set, and I went on stage and just bombed like Silence.
There you go.
And I did that 7 times of Silence, which is horrible.
God, that's a lot.
Yeah. And then, but then finally I got a laugh. And then I was like, okay, I'm in. Like, I'm not in, but I'm doing this. I'm going to figure this out.
Well, and that's the thing too, is it really defines who wants to do it and who doesn't when you go up and you bomb, because that's one of those things where it's like, okay, like how badly do you want to do this?
Right.
Because it's demeaning and demoralizing and all sorts of shitty when you get up there and it's just, I tell people all the time, I'd rather hear groans or boos than silence.
Right.
Because at least if people are groaning, they're listening and they get it. Their sense of humor isn't on track with yours. That's fine. But when it's silence, it's like, oh, nobody understands what I'm trying to say at all.
Yeah.
And that's the worst.
Right.
Because I've had those sets before, too, where it's like, oh, everyone here's well-adjusted? Nobody here knows about jail or rehab or heroin or anything?
Right.
Okay, cool. I guess I'm just going to give a TED Talk about addiction.
Right. Yeah. Dude, I always tell people, I'm like, it's the highs are really high and the lows are so low.
Brutal.
Yeah. You're like, why the fuck am I doing this?
So you did the open mic, and then you said you were in. Were you kind of just like, all right, I'm going to work a regular job so I can pay my bills, and then I'm just going to do comedy whenever I can, wherever I can? Or did you kind of dip your toe into it?
Yeah, I guess I wasn't in. I was, because what I did is I did like one or two open mics a week for like 3 months.
Yeah.
And my thing was like, because before you do comedy, you like see all these, you think like you have to be really funny to do comedy. And then I feel like now that I've been in the scene a while, I see people who aren't that funny, but they just figure out how to do comedy.
Joke structure.
Yeah, joke structure. So I was just thinking, I'm like, if all these people figured it out, like there's no way I can't figure it out if I just keep going back.
Yeah.
So I mean, I did that for like 3 months, did 1 or 2 mics, and then I quit for like 6 months.
Yeah.
Which I feel like we all do that.
Yeah,
shit.
oh yeah, I've done it a few times.
Yeah, and then I was like, kind of trying. The restaurant I worked at closed, and so I was like trying to find a job. I didn't want to go back to restaurants. I was like, I need to figure something out.
Yeah.
And I was like, I really like doing comedy, but I wasn't like prepared to just give it my all. But then I was like, oh, I'm just going to try it again. So I got back into it, and then I was like, okay, I'm going to fucking try and do this.
Yeah.
Right. Did that make sense?
No, it makes perfect sense, because that's what happened to me. I started doing comedy, and it was like, and I started in South Florida, and I was doing like a mic every couple of weeks.
Right.
Like here and there, and it was dog shit. Like I was so bad. And then I, stopped for a while, and then I started again, but same thing, like a mic every once in a while. And then I moved to Oklahoma City with my cousin, because he was doing comedy up there. That's a long story. But I moved up there, and I was doing shows with him all the time. And I was trying to write, like, set up, punch, and it wasn't working, because I'm not good at that. So I just wasn't and I was drunk all the time. So I'd get on stage and do like one setup, but then another punchline, and I'd do like an Arnold impression and run the light for like 6 minutes over, and everyone in the scene hated me.
That's funny.
Because I was just like the drunken asshole.
Right.
And then, but I was really in. Like I was doing comedy as much as I could. Right. And then I ended up going to rehab in Jacksonville. This is 2013. And I was like, when I got out of rehab, I was like, all right, I'm going to like focus on comedy. So I worked in a restaurant, and then I did like mics all the time. And then when I relapsed in 2015 or 15, I like was just out. So like you're saying, like I was out for like a year and a half almost because I was just drunk all the time. But I had made a conscious decision where I was like, I'm not going to get on stage hammered like I used to.
Okay.
Like I was like, I can't do that again because I made a fucking ass out of myself. And an entire scene. Like, a lot of those people still won't talk to me from Oklahoma because they're like, you're not a real comic. Like, you're a drunken idiot.
Right.
Even though I've, turned things around. So, to your point, I think everyone I've had on this podcast, I think there's always a point where they take some time off because it's like, we all want to do it, and that's why we do it, but it seems impossible.
Right.
Like, especially when you're doing open mics, and then you look at someone like Burr or Segura or Chappelle, and you're like, I mean, technically, we both, quote unquote, do comedy, but they're selling out arenas. And especially in New York, you're doing an open mic in front of 6 other comics who are all staring at their phone.
Yeah.
And you're like, there's a disconnect here.
Yeah, for sure.
But you've now grown, obviously. You've got the mics that you host.
Yeah.
And how did the whole Hell Yeah comedy thing, is that something you jumped into or started, or how did that happen?
Yeah, me and my... actually went to host. I wanted to host a mic just to get more stage time.
Yeah.
Or just practice hosting. So I reached out to Cellar 77, which is where the mic is, and he's like, "Oh, I have 2 slots open if you want to bring a co-producer." So this guy, Billy Hockman, I do comedy with. I asked him if he wanted to be one of the host the other mic, and he was on board. And then after we had the mics for a few weeks, we're like, let's get a show going.
Okay.
And then...
Because Cellar 77 has a ton of mics at it.
Yeah. Like, I mean, there's like 4 or 5 a day.
Yeah.
And, so we started doing the shows, and we actually have 2 other producers now, so there's 4 of us.
Oh, wow.
Which is kind of a lot, but it's been going... We're on our 6th show coming up, and they've all been really good. So
well, that's awesome.
Yeah. It's just like figuring out... There's so many fucking shows in New York.
Yeah.
Just trying to like figure out how to make something different. But
well, and that's a weird thing about it too was, I think I've said this before, but in Florida, especially in Jacksonville, there's the comedy zone, but there's a disconnect between the comedy zone and the local scene. So like in Orlando and Tampa, the main comedy clubs love the local scene. Like they encourage the local scene to come out because they know people. They'll bring people to the comedy club and stuff like that. But in Jacksonville, it's not like that. So the open mics are almost a show in themselves.
Oh, okay.
Like at a lot of our open mics, we had regulars that would come out. And they were almost like shows that just happened. Anyone could go up, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It was like a thing.
I feel like a lot of people do talk about that in other scenes outside of New York.
Yeah.
Where their open mics actually have real people.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah.
And in New York, like you're saying, there's so many shows and there's so much to do that the only people at the open mics in New York are comics.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, in my experience, it's comics who come in, do their set, and leave. Now, the Hell Yeah is really cool because everyone stays for that. I know Audrey runs a room at Broadway Comedy Club, an open mic on Thursdays, where she basically tells everyone, like, you're going to stay,
right.
And if something's funny, you're going to laugh. And if it's not funny, don't laugh, but don't just sit there and stare at your phone. She basically says that at the open of every mic. So those are a lot of fun. But then I've been to other mics where literally you walk in and you're talking to yourself for 3 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And you're like, the fuck are we doing?
You know what's crazy is like before the pandemic, that was way worse.
Oh, it was?
Yeah. Like right now it seems like everyone, I don't know if it's because there's not as many mics or like people, I don't know why it is, but now people actually will stay for the whole mic.
Yeah.
Where before the pandemic, it seemed like most mics, people would just leave.
Oh,
like
really?
all the time. Like Laughing Buddha would do this thing where they would auction. Do you know Laughing Buddha?
No.
There's a company who had all these mics they were at Cellar 77 before, but there was some drama and they got kicked out of there or whatever.
Okay.
But they used to have at the end raffle a chip, and if you got the chip, then you could go up first on the next mic. So that was
so
incentive.
everyone would stay.
Yeah, but like every other mic, you would, and I was guilty of the same thing. I'm like, I want to hit 3 or 4 mics a day. so I'd do my time and leave. But
yeah,
it has gotten better. I feel like but I'm slowly watching it get worse, where people aren't staying like they were.
Yeah.
So
well, it's weird too, because you had mentioned earlier that you had seen a few specials, but you weren't really into stand-up. Like, I got into comedy because I loved stand-up.
Right.
Like, I just love the art of watching someone be like, I don't know if this is funny or not, but it's funny to me, so let's try it. And to me, that's like my favorite part, is seeing what other people find funny. Now, there's a line, obviously. Like, if someone's humping the stool and being, like, super hacky, I'm like, all right, like, you're just doing this because it's like an easy way to get laughs for regular people.
Right.
But like it's truly like I've been obsessed with comedy since I was young. And like the actual comedy. So when I go to mics and I see people leave, I'm always like, yeah, but don't you want to see like what everyone else is doing? Like, don't you want to like check out whatever? Because I'm just a fan of comedy. So that's why I always sit towards the front. Like if I think something's funny, I fucking laugh.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm loud. But it's like one of those things where it's like, no, this is good. Like, you need to reward the person for coming up with this. Like, this is good. And that's why it's so weird to me when people treat it like you're saying, where they're just like, no, I want to hit like 4 mics, so I'm going to go up, do my set real quick and leave. It's like, yeah, but then you're almost losing a part of the whole part of comedy, which is the hangout, the hearing what everyone else is talking about, helping someone punch up a joke, someone helping you punch up a joke. Like, that's all involved in comedy. It's not just getting up, doing 5 and leaving.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
No, it does. And I feel like, I mean, I'm just now feel like I'm getting more part of the community, but for a long time, I just wanted my time. Yeah. I mean, I always try and laugh, but I'm not a loud laugher. Yeah. And then I try and stay, but yeah, so I don't know. I think what you're saying is cool, and I wish we were all like that, but I feel like a lot of people just
especially in New York, I don't think there's hardly anybody like that.
Right.
Because it's interesting you said like a lot of other communities outside the city are people will stay and hang out in the show. The mics are like shows. I find, and that's just something interesting, is that once you get into New York, it's much more, this is a business. Like, we're here to do work. Right. Like, this isn't a hangout, we're all buddies kind of thing. Which is interesting because I have found hanging out at like the Stand and the Cellar has been more beneficial than tagging like 3 or 4 mics a day. Just hanging out. Right. Because then I get to know other and I've obviously been doing comedy a long time, so I don't like, I need the reps, but I don't have to get like 4 mics a day. Right. Like, it's one of those things where it's like I have, like, if someone said, "Hey, do you want to do 5 minutes?" I've got my 5 that I know is strong, that I'm good with. So it's not like if I have a new bit, obviously I want to work it out and stuff like that. But I have found it way more beneficial to just go to the Stand and hang out. And now I've become friends with people who are paid regulars there and people who are names of note. And it's one of those things where it's like, that happened not because I was tagging 4 mics a day. That happened just because I'm a comic and I did the thing that comics do. I hung out. Yeah. And now all of a sudden I'm friends with these people, and it's like, that would have never happened going to open mics. Because they never, they're established comedians. They don't go to open mics.
Yeah, right. And that's something I'm just now trying to do more of, is because for 3 years I was just do mics, wouldn't go to people's shows, wouldn't hang out at clubs, and but then I watch people who are newer to the scene, and they're doing way more shows, and they put in the time with the hangout and meeting people, and I'm like, oh, that's I mean, it's not more important than the jokes, but it's a big part.
It's as important.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, and it hurts me to say that because I'm very pretentious when it comes to comedy. I'm very much like, this is an art form. Like, what we're doing is art. So it pains me to say it, but it's true. The hang is as important as the jokes. Yeah. Because if you're cool with people and you're decently funny, they'll put you on their show. Like, they have no problem doing that. But if you're an asshole, you have to be like next level funny for people to put you on a show. Yeah. So it's almost like if you're cool to hang out with, people don't mind being like, yeah, you've got 5, why don't you go up and do it? Which sucks because you almost want to be like, no, the jokes should speak for themselves. But that's not how it works. Right.
There's just too many. I think there's just too many damn comics.
Yeah, there is. Especially in New York.
It hurts, dude.
It's insane. When I first moved here, like the first week I was here, I went to do an open mic. And there were 2 people that I met after the mic. Because I said right on stage, I was like, I just moved here. Like, I've been here for a week. This is the first mic I've done. I was like, I'm so excited. Because no matter what happens, I'm technically doing comedy in New York City. No one can take that away from me. Right. And that's how I looked at the first mic. And so a couple comics came up to me after, and they're like established comedians in the New York scene. Like they do open mics, but they do shows as well, and they're passed at certain clubs. And they talked to me, and like we hung out for a little bit after, and I was like, sweet, this is going to be so easy. I shit you not. I have not seen either of those comics at a mic again.
Right.
And I don't go to a ton of open mics, but I still go. But I have not seen them since because there are so many comics and so many mics that it was just one of those weird things where it's like, oh, I literally have never seen them again.
Yeah, and I see that all the time too where I guess I'm like at Cellar 77 a lot, and there's like the group of comics to go there. I go to the West Side Comedy Club, and there's all these new people, and they're all funny too. And I'm like, I think I would have thought I
would know them.
They would know them,
yeah.
Especially if you're funny. Then I'm like, how have I not run across? Yeah, so it's so weird. I'm like, fuck.
There's
crazy.
So many comics.
Yeah,
and everything has its own little like set. So there's like the Cellar 77 crew. Then like you said, there's the West Side Comedy Club. Then Broadway has a bunch of mics. There's the comics that just go there. And like I try to go to different ones just because I work at night and I work in a restaurant, so my schedule's always wonky. So I'm always ending up at different mics. So I'm literally seeing like there's a set of like 12 or 13 comics that only go to these mics. Yep. And then there's another set of like 12 or 13. And then you do the math and you're like, well, there's 10 or 15 random places that do comedy. So if there's 10 or 15 comics going to each of those 10 or like that's, and then you start to like be like, that's over 100 comics just going to these open mics.
Yeah, and that's just mics. Like,
and that's,
the level
exactly.
above and then the level above. And
that's bananas.
Like, I feel like you can't even think about it because then it just gets overwhelming.
It's
like,
very
the fuck
discouraging.
Am I doing this? That's how I feel. I'm like, I can't. It's rough, but.
Well, let's talk about, so when you first moved to New York, you came here because you just kind of wanted to live here.
Yeah.
And you said you were working in a restaurant and then you were just out partying.
Mm-hmm.
What was your kind of like go-to? Because New York has such a wide range of things. Like there's the rave scene and the club scene and the concert scene and there's so much stuff. So what was kind of your thing? Like you go to work and then get off and just go to a bar? Would you guys go out or were you doing drugs or what was the thing?
No, it was more just like drink. I mean, a lot of time I wouldn't go out after. I get so hungover. Like,
oh, do you?
Yeah, I have since I started drinking. You would think I would have stopped drinking, but I still do.
When did you start drinking?
I started drinking like later, like when I was 19.
Okay. That was the same thing with me. I started when I was like just about to turn 18, but all my friends drank since like freshman year of high school, and I was like, I did not do that.
Yeah, well, and then maybe you can relate to this because like when you're 16, you start getting drunk and you're the drunk idiot.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, oh, he's 16, he's new at this. I did that when I was like 20, 21 in college. So I was like, I'd be like fucking doing stupid shit. I'd be sleeping in my throw up and it's not cute when you're fucking 21.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, I know exactly what you mean.
Right.
So, I was that person at like 20, 21, same thing where I would just get way too hammered. And like I stole a friend's car. I told that story one time on this podcast because I was like, I just want to go home. So I just ran outside and took his car, hammered drunk. And the car ran out of gas. And I was like, I don't know what to do. But it's like when you're 16, 17, it's like, oh, you just started drinking, like let him go. But when you're 20, 21, it's like, the fuck's wrong with you, asshole?
Exactly. Yeah, so I don't even know why I brought that up.
Because you said you started drinking later in life.
Right. So like New York, my biggest thing I would do is pretty much go to happy hour on my days off and then just continue through till fucking 2 or 3 in the morning.
Okay, so were you working, because in restaurants it's weird, I tell people this all the time, but like full-time in a restaurant is normally like 4 days a week. So were you working like 5 or 6 days a week, or were you?
Yeah, no, it was like 4 days a week. I worked in a bunch of restaurants around the city, but I guess I generally just wouldn't go out after I got off.
Yeah,
because it's already like late, and then you're there till 4 in the morning.
Yeah,
and
that's the thing that I'm starting to discover. Because obviously I don't drink anymore, but like I talk to some people that I work with, and most of the time, because I work in nicer places, so a lot of times it's older servers because you have to have the experience to work there. Right. And they just go home right after work. But some of the younger servers are like, no, man, we go out after this. And I'm like, the fuck is, like, what? Like, we don't get out till midnight.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing? And they're like, oh, no, I hit a rave at 1 a.m. And I'm like, fuck you.
Yeah.
Like, hell no.
Yeah, I never got into the raves or that sort of thing.
Yeah, I I never even knew it was still a thing. It was a thing in the 90s, but I never knew it was still a thing until I moved to New York.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, and there's a couple people I work with who do the rave scene. So that's the only reason I keep bringing it up is because like I know it's a New York thing.
Yeah, like especially like in Bushwick, they got warehouses. Like that fucking scene's still huge.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what it was in the 90s, but now like so many people are still into
like
that.
4 or 5 in the morning just out there.
There's a place called House of Yes. Have you heard of that place?
Never.
It's in Bushwick, and they always have crazy parties. I've heard people, they have like sex parties, and people go there, and it's like the rave, but you can go in the different rooms and
just bang.
Yeah, and like you're like tied up, and people are whipping you and shit.
Oh, that's gross.
Yeah, I haven't done that.
Whatever you're into, but
it's cool if you're into it.
Yeah, if you're
if you're a weirdo, yeah, fucking do it. No.
I always get so nervous now that I'm in New York because in Florida you can kind of just say whatever, but in New York I'm always like, oh, I'm going to offend somebody or somebody's going to get upset. Like I always am like tiptoeing around that.
Yeah.
So when you're like, yeah, it's a sex party, I'm like, well, I don't want to kink shame anybody, but still, that's kind of weird to me.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, New York is touchy with that sort of thing.
It's really touchy.
Yeah.
It's interesting because I've done shows where I'll tell true stories about things that have happened to me. And everyone's good because it's a true story and everyone in New York is fine with it. But the second I try to say something that doesn't even seem mildly offensive, people are like, you can't say that.
Right.
And it's like, I just said gay. And they're like, yeah, nope, can't do it. And I'm like, oh, I'm so confused.
Yeah. Wait, and is that something you've, like in Florida is the...
No, but in Florida, people are just like, oh.
Say
like,
whatever.
Yeah. And like people get offended. But in Florida, I have the opposite where I'll tell a true story and then people, middle-aged white women will come up to me afterwards and go, you shouldn't, like I have a bit about this guy named Tyrone, who I'm still friends with on Facebook, and like we still communicate, but it's about being in jail and this whole thing that happened with Tyrone.
Is he Puerto Rican or something?
No, he's a black guy, but
that's a humor. Here we go.
Here we go. Hey, but women will, like older middle-aged white women come up to me after the show and they go, why has he got to be Tyrone? I go, well, because that's his name. And they go, that's racist. And I go, no, that's that happened.
Right.
And they go, well, you should change his name to like Bob or Bill. And I go, but it wasn't a guy named Bob or Bill. It was this guy. And I've noticed that, and that happens in Florida, but I've noticed shows I do in New York, that doesn't, like if you're like, this is a true story, people don't really combat you on it. They're just kind of like, okay. Because New York is so diverse and there's so many different people. They're like, yeah, we could see that being a guy named Tyrone.
Right.
But the problem is in Florida, it's not that diverse. So when you say Tyrone and you know it's a black guy, people automatically go, why has he got to be black?
Oh,
and
that's
it's like,
interesting.
that's weird that this is the stance that you would take.
Right.
But that's just something I noticed. In New York, it's weird because there's certain stuff you can get away with a lot more, but then there's other things that you cannot get away with at all.
Yeah, especially if you're like Bushwick. The comedy, like I feel like just like being like a straight white dude, it seems like people just aren't
on board.
You have to like really win them over. Yeah, and I haven't even done shows there. That's more like the mics, but
you heard it here first. Cody said, "Free the straight white male."
Yeah, we need help right now, guys.
That'll be the name of the episode.
I was gonna say though, fucking a lot of people, when I tell them I do comedy, they're like, isn't it weird right now with the PC culture and you can't say anything? You guys aren't allowed to say anything. And I'm like, the thing is, you can say shit as long as it's funny.
Yeah, if it's funny, you can say whatever you want.
Yeah, you can get away with it. But a lot of people, I did this too when I first started comedy, is I would see black comics talking about race or pretty much any other race besides a white guy talking about race. And I'm like, they could do it. I'm going to try it.
Oh,
and so
no.
I tried like a few jokes that were racially charged a little, and the thing is they weren't funny.
Yeah.
And so then they just bombed so hard. But I constantly watch new comics in the scene do that, where they're like, I'm gonna try. The white guy's like, I'm gonna try this, and then just fucking tank.
Yeah, and that's something I actually tried when I first started comedy, because I played college football and I was kind of a bro, like, you know, a bro-y kind of douche. So I tried like all these like supercharged, almost shock jock kind of things, like, oh, well, if a girl gets raped, that's still cheating, so I got to break up with her. And, like, it's not funny. It's just, like, it's, like, gross.
Yeah.
But, like, I was like, oh, this is so edgy. And it's like, no, that's just shitty.
Yeah.
Like, why would you – that's just shitty. And so it took me – and obviously that was, 12 years ago when I first started comedy. But to your point, like, I was like, I'm going to be edgy and cool. And it's like, that's not my voice at all.
Yeah.
Like, if anything, I'm the angry guy who gets, like, kind of pissed about shit. but I'm not a shock jock kind of person when it comes to comedy.
Yeah, and sometimes though, when people are doing the shock thing on purpose, like just you're like, or that's their shtick. I just feel like I'm just like, just not into it. You like easily you see what they're doing and you're like, okay,
yeah,
come on.
If it's like Jesselnick does it really well, where he'll do something and then he'll do a misdirect. And then the next joke, it'll go right where you think it's going. But because of the misdirect of the joke before, you didn't see that coming. So that's very much like the way he puts all that together in his joke structure. That's good.
Right.
That's awesome when you talk about like that kind of like shock humor. But then when you see new people do it, it's just like dead baby jokes. And you're like, this isn't.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing? Like, you read these online and then you came to an open mic to try them. That's not how comedy works.
Right. And I feel like most of the time people figure that out, like, oh, this isn't working.
Or they just quit.
Or they quit, yeah. So
either way.
I mean, either way. But yeah, if someone does shock humor well, then yeah, I'm on board.
Yeah.
Right? It just seems like it's something newer people are attracted
always
to.
Try, yeah.
Yeah.
Because everyone always thinks that's going to be their lane until it's not. I mean, that's what happened with me.
Right.
That's exactly what I thought I was going to do. And then I tried it and I was like, oh, this is not only not funny, this isn't good at all. This like hurts my soul.
Yeah.
Like, I can't do this.
Right.
But you were saying happy hour, days off. Let's get back on track.
Okay, yeah, drinking.
I have a problem with just talking comedy, especially when I have comics on. I'll just talk comedy the whole time, and then I'll get emails where people are like, all right, man, like, are we going to share any stories? So you were going to happy hour, getting fucked up.
Yeah,
and then
that's also the lamest way to say you get drunk, to go to happy hour, but it's fine.
But I mean, it's better than the way I used to get drunk. I used to just buy a bottle after work and go home and watch Netflix and do shots by myself.
That's badass, though. I feel like that's a badass category.
It is badass until you end up in the hospital.
Yeah, true.
And then
fair.
When you're 30 and people are like, you got alcohol poisoning in your 30s? And you're like, yeah, got a little crazy.
Yeah.
That's when it's not cool. But how did you... Was it a progressive thing where you were getting like really fucked up and like hooking up with girls and like that whole thing that happened? Or was it one of those things where when you started drinking, like you said, you started later, so you were just from jump, like, let's go?
I mean, the thing is, like, to be honest, I didn't really hook up with that many girls. I wish it was more, but I like just went through a phase where I guess I can go into the tattoos.
Yeah,
because that's like part of it. My buddy and I went to happy hour. There was Old Fashions for $5, which is that
a steal.
Yeah, it's a steal, especially in New York. And we were already hammered. We're walking down the street and we see that we were walking by a shoe store, and it should have been closed, but it was open, and on the sign that said tattoos $25. And
at a shoe store.
At a shoe store, and my buddy's like, we should get a tattoo because he has a bunch of shitty drunk tattoos, and I was like, fuck no, I'm not gonna do that. And I'm like, besides, they're probably not real. They're $25. And then the fucking tattoo artist was sitting there smoking, and he's like, oh, they're real. and so my buddy's like, okay, let's do it. And we go in,
and you're hammered.
Yeah, we're already hammered, and there's like, you could pick one of 5, and he picks one. And there's like this woman like shaped like an apple, but she's naked. It's supposed to be like the Big Apple. It's a horrible tattoo. Okay. And I'm like, I'm not gonna get one, but the tattoo artist has beer in there. We're just, as he's getting the tattoo, we're just continually drinking, and then finally I'm like, you know what? Fuck it, I'm gonna get one. So I pointed to one. It's like this train with butterfly wings. He called it the love train, but it's not funny enough where it's a funny tattoo, and it's not good enough where it's good. So it's in this like weird middle ground. Yeah. Which makes it worse. It's the worst. Like, it's the worst possible. Anyway, so I got that, and the whole next week I regretted it. Like, the next day I was like,
where did you get it?
It was on my leg.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, unless my shorts are like I'm sitting, you can't really see it.
Yeah.
And but I regret it. I was like bartending at this place, and I didn't show any of my coworkers. Like, I remember like kind of trying to hide it because I was like so embarrassed of it. And so then literally the next Friday, a week later, we go out, same bar, same happy hour. We're walking by.
Same shoe store,
same tattoo artist, and then I went in there and got another tattoo. And I was like, the next day I just like, what the fuck am I doing?
So did you stop with the tattoos after that?
Yeah. The next I got one more, and that one actually put money and time towards.
Yeah.
Where these were like
drunken decisions.
Yeah, one of them is fine. It's just a word. so that's whatever. But
What's the word?
Is I never explained this to people. It's a song that just like my favorite song. It's Wake by the band called The Antlers.
Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty gay. Can I say it's gay? It's gay.
You say whatever you want.
But it's so yeah, and after I did that, and then in the middle of that, actually the first night I got that train.
The love train.
The love
you
train.
Can say it.
I got the love train. I had sex with this girl. That was the one who broke the PlayStation.
So what happened there? She just was like drunk and fell on it?
Yeah. No, the thing is I don't know. My PlayStation worked the day before she came over, and then it stopped working the day after, and I assume it was her. So I'm maybe it just. Oh,
so you don't have like there wasn't like you guys were like messing around and she like fell right on it. I
don't have sex that good. No, no. But I just think it was her. That maybe that's wrong to accuse some random chick.
Fuck them.
But so then so that it was just like those little moments, just a lot of drinking.
Well, you had a couple of those like almost like shorter stories that are very self-explanatory, but I wanted to get into a couple of them. So you had said something about a concert that you went to, or kind of did you actually go to it?
No. So
tell that story. When did this happen? How long were you in New York?
This was pre-New York.
So this is in California.
Yeah, this is California.
How old were you?
How old was I? I had to be 19 or 20.
Okay, so you had just started drinking.
So I just started drinking, and my my high school girlfriend dumped me at the time.
Okay.
And I like was very in love with her, and so I was like devastated.
Distraught,
yeah, so that's when I actually started drinking. And so we were going. Me and my brother got tickets to LMFAO.
Hell yeah.
Which
was huge back then.
Yeah, especially at that time. And I fucking we got the concert was like a few towns down, so we got a campsite, rented an RV.
Oh shit.
Like really we're going to do this. I bought like a stupid neon tank top. I learned how to shuffle.
There you go.
Like which is like a big thing for them. I watched a YouTube video and like learned how to shuffle. So I was like on board. We were with some girls that when we're all going to the concert, and we started drinking vodka. And I'm walking.
What time is the concert?
The concert was at like 6 p.m.
And you started drinking?
Probably like 4.
Okay, so not crazy early.
Yeah, but it was just just a lot.
Well,
quickly.
yeah, and I mean, when people, that's something I've noticed doing the show and in my alcoholism is that a lot of times people are like beer wine drinkers, and then they're like, oh man, then I got on the liquor and it was crazy. But like I've always been just a straight liquor drinker. So like if you're not used to that, if you're uninitiated, then it's painful.
Yeah, especially when shots always to this day shots still fuck me up where I think I'm handling it, and then we take shots and then I can't. But
that's great.
So we're like
I think I can do it and then I can't.
Yeah, I thought that would come with age, but it doesn't. But we're walking. So I actually like hardly remember leaving the RV.
So yeah, so how far is the RV?
It's probably
the campsite from the actual
It's like half
venue?
mile walk.
Oh, okay. So you guys can just get fucked up and then walk there.
Yeah, and
so you start drinking at 4. You guys are doing vodka. We're doing shots. We're getting crazy.
Yeah,
and then you don't even remember leaving to go to the concert.
No, and then next thing I know, I wake up in my living room back home.
Oh shit!
Yeah, and
so you completely blacked out.
Blacked out, and my dad was like sleeping on. I was on the living room floor. My dad was on the couch, and I was like, "Yo, what happened?" He's like, "We had to pick you up." And so apparently, what happened is we were all walking, and I just fucking fell over, and then so the ambulance came.
Oh my god! So your brother was like panicked.
Yeah, and they like they're doing all these tests, and my brother's like, "He's fine. It's fine. I can take him." And then so my brother called my mom.
Oh no!
And then so they let us go, obviously. So then my mom picked me up, and then my brother went to the concert and had a great old time. And I just fucking
you went home. You were dragged home.
And I had like when I woke up, I had all these like I don't know what the EMTs put on me, but something. Maybe for the blood alcohol, but I had all these like sticky patches on me.
Oh, really?
I'm not sure what it was.
Well, a lot of times they put like the EKGs and like stuff like that to measure your heart rate and all that kind of stuff. So those are sticky pads that they'll put on you.
Yeah. And so that was you just missed the whole thing. And I spent there's like so much time and money going to that.
I still can't get over that. You guys got a campsite, rented an RV.
Yeah.
Like, that's serious, especially at 19, 20. That's serious, like, money and time that you're putting towards it.
Especially LMFAO. Like, it wasn't like we were big fans. We were just thought this concert would be worth doing.
And then
I guess.
you missed everything.
Everything.
Did you at least have a good time, like, getting to that point?
No, that's the stupid thing is, like, we got drunk so quickly that I don't. It's not like I got to enjoy the moment.
Yeah, you didn't
going
even
up
have.
to it,
God, that sucks.
which is the worst. So that was probably my first like not being able to handle my alcohol moment.
Well, then you also had a story that happened in New York where you just, again, this seems to be a common theme where you just passed out.
Yeah, that was.
So what happened with that one?
That one I went drinking with this girl. I actually was drinking after I got off work that day, and I went with this girl.
Where was this at?
This was in the East Village.
Okay, and how long ago was this?
This had to be like 2016 or 2015 maybe.
Okay, so you hadn't started comedy yet. You're still doing the party thing in New York.
Yeah, still partying. And I went with this girl I worked with to a bar, and we're just drinking. And she, like, I remember her leaving.
Do you remember what you were drinking? Were you doing beer?
It was like margaritas.
Oh, okay, so you're back on the liquor train.
Hell yeah, dude. That's when it always goes south, is the margaritas. Yeah. And then so I remember saying bye to her, and then the next thing I know, I wake up.
Oh, no.
Again.
So you are at the bar drinking margaritas. You remember saying, like, all right, I'll see you later. Yeah. And then the next thing you remember is waking up.
Yeah, and I woke up in the...
That's the second time this has happened.
Yeah, this is not good. I haven't done this in a while, so that's good for me. I'm learning, maybe. But and so I woke up, and I'm literally 2 blocks from the bar, so I didn't even make it that far. But I'm sitting up, my legs are like sprawled, and my head's like hanging in my legs, like I'm like bent over.
Like
and
you're nodding out on heroin.
Yeah, exactly, and I'm covered in throw up.
Oh my God!
And so what woke me up is my friend's apartment was right there. And I think I tried to go there because I realized I was fucked up, but I didn't ring the buzzer or anything. I just like sat down, threw up everywhere. And so then when she came out to work at 6 a.m, she saw me there.
Oh my God.
And she's like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, I couldn't even talk.
This was your friend that you were talking to? Okay.
This is not the one I was drinking with. This
no,
is like
it's
a different
friend. Yeah.
And she's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, I don't, like, I couldn't even talk. And she's like, "Well, I got to go to work." And I was like, "Okay." And then she fucking left and just left me covered in my throw up.
So a person you know, let's not say friend. Let's say a person that you know.
The stupid thing is she was my friend, and she's still my friend, but because she texted me like half hour after, she's like, "Oh my gosh, you caught me off guard. Like, I was late for work. I didn't even think of how I is fucked up. I just left you." So she like quickly apologized.
Okay, all right.
But still, the fact that if you wake up, and I lived in Brooklyn, so it's not like I'm like nearby.
Yeah, you're at least a 40-minute train ride from home.
Yeah, and so so I like.
So what happened? So when did you? This is fascinating to me. When did you leave the bar? Do you have any recollection?
It
of
had
that?
to be like because it had to be like midnight, maybe 1 a.m.
Okay, so it wasn't. It's not exponentially late. It's not like 4 a.m. and then you passed out for a couple hours.
No,
you were out for like 6 hours.
Yeah, probably around that time. Yeah.
Oh my God! And you're just on the side of the street.
Yeah, and the thing is, I always have my backpack, and my backpack was still on. I had glasses I was wearing.
Sunglasses or
no,
glasses
like my glasses,
okay.
Which I don't wear that often, but I had on that night, and those are literally covered in puke. But they were still on my face. Like,
oh my God. So you were like violently throwing up.
Yeah. And luckily I was like sitting up.
Well, and like,
I guess, I don't know.
And that's, I mean, obviously good that you were, because you could have choked on your own vomit. You hear about that a lot, but I actually know some people who got taken out by that. But
shit.
Yeah, it's such a, like, it's like, man, you do heroin and like you got taken out by throw up. Like, fuck, man. But,
sad.
There's so many things. Like, you're in New York, which is not the safest place in the world to pass out with your wallet and backpack and phone, and you're just out for hours. Like, not even. It's almost like the throw up was a shield.
Maybe.
Like, I don't think anyone was going to roll you because you were covered in vomit.
Yeah. No, I never thought about that.
Oh, this is shit I think about all the time.
Thanks, throw up. That's good.
You got to tell that story on stage.
Fucking. I mean, also is good. It was summer, because I almost did the same thing during the winter.
You could have froze.
Which you could just die.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I always hope that someone would stop and like wake me up.
But they won't.
Yeah, like how many people I walk by so many people where I'm like I should wake them up, but I'm like they're fine. You know what I mean?
And that's something that's been difficult for me is so it's a big thing where I don't want to ignore someone who's down on their luck, because I've been homeless before. Like I've not had a place to sleep. Like I've slept in cars and I've had to couch surf, and there are times where I'm like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. Like I'm fucked.
Right. Obviously,
there's a reason you go to rehab and detox, and like there's a reason like you don't go in on a winning streak. So I've been in rough spots before. So whenever I see someone like that, I always feel bad. And like if I have an extra cigarette, I'll give them a cigarette. If I have like a spare $1 or so, I'll give them that. But in New York, it's so prevalent that you almost do become numb to it. No matter how much empathy you have, you see so many people just chilling, basically.
Yeah.
Outside of subway stops, outside of stores, just on the side of the street, that I've only been here for 3 months and I've almost become numb to it.
Yep.
And that's something that is interesting because I have never seen snow. I haven't been here for a winter yet. But like you're saying, like I hope that if I see someone sprawled out and it's cold out, I would have the decency to be like, yo, man, are you okay? But there's also a part of me that's like, I don't know if I'm going to do that because I've gotten so used to the homeless situation that I just don't. It's almost sometimes it doesn't even register.
Yeah, well, that's crazy because, I mean, it's so true. Like, I don't even think about it anymore.
Yeah, and like in your case, God forbid if that happened in the wintertime, because you were totally out of it. Like, obviously, like you threw up on yourself and you were sitting in your own vomit.
Right.
So if that happened and it was like, 30-something degrees outside, you could have died.
Yeah. And that happened to me like a few years later. I got like crossfaded and I was in a Uber and I got sick in the Uber for whatever reason. And I like had to crawl out of the Uber and I was like crawling up my stairs.
Did you throw up in the Uber?
No, I didn't.
I was going to say, you get a $250 charge if you do that.
Yeah, somehow I've always avoided that, even though I've had those moments where I thought I would have. But it was in the middle of winter, and I was crawling up the steps, like, outside to my apartment.
Yeah.
Like, up to the main door. And I like, kind of passed out. But I remember thinking, like, dude, you're going to die.
Yeah.
And somehow I fucking crawled up.
Survival's the most basic instinct.
Right.
And no, I'm being serious, too, because there are times where I've been fucked up. Like, fucked up, but I still end up like on my living room floor, or you know what I mean? Like I like have somehow managed to survive.
Yeah, it's
crazy. It's like a lot of times it takes a lot, like for your body, unless your body's completely shut down. Because like I said, I've had friends go out that way where their body's just shut down. But until your body's completely shut down, your brain, that last little part of your brain will be like, "Come on, like we gotta go.
Yeah,
we got to go."
Which is so crazy because I always think of like I always have my wallet, like I still like do my wallet.
Yeah, wallet,
check,
keys, phone. Yeah,
and even though I'm annihilated, my brain's still like, oh, you got.
There's some basic things that your brain will always function on.
It's so weird.
It's just trying to help you survive, man.
Yeah,
that's
damn.
I can't believe twice you've passed out in front of your own house.
Yeah. I'm just not good at drinking, I think.
Well, speaking of not good at drinking, I wanted to there was a couple stories that you said we wanted to save for the end. And we are coming up on the time, so I want to make sure we have enough time to do both of them. So the first one was pretending to be paralyzed.
Hell yeah.
That's the one I definitely wanted to hear about.
Okay.
And then we're going to do the one that you said was
Stuck
the best
in a
one.
Woman's garage.
We're going to do that one last.
Okay,
so do the pretending to be paralyzed one.
Okay, I was this was when
Set it up. Where are we at?
I was in college in San Francisco. And that there was like a bar that, because all my friends were underage.
Yeah.
So because I moved on to the dorms and it's supposed to be like upperclassmen, but there's all younger people. Anyway, so I was friends with all younger people. So we'd go to this bar where they didn't really ID, or they'd like look if it's a fake ID, they like, wouldn't give a fuck.
Or they just look and they're like, if they're showing it to me, they gotta be of age. That's as a server, I've done that quite a few times.
Oh yeah, same.
Where I'm like, if someone's gonna go through the effort of pulling their ID out, then they have to be 21.
Right.
Like I just assume they're 21.
Dude, one time I was bartending and these kids showed me their IDs and I saw they're fake, but I'm like, whatever. I'm like, oh, I gave them drinks. And then they're sitting there talking about, one of them was talking about how old they are. And I was just like, hey guys, I saw your IDs. like just shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
And that was it. But I'm like, like
don't do that.
Don't do that. And servers here, especially in New York, we don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
But anyway, this is in San Francisco, and we like pre-gamed a little. I had like 2 drinks. We walk into this bar.
Back on liquor?
No, this is actually beer.
Okay.
This one I actually wasn't even that drunk. I was just like a little buzzed, and I slipped on some like water on the ground and went from feet to back, like full on like cartoon fall.
Like whoop, 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 whoop.
Exactly, like it's a banana or something. And I landed on my back, and the bouncer comes over, and he's like, "Dude, what the fuck are you doing? Get the fuck off the floor! You're fucking hammered." And I was like kind of out of it, but I was also like mad that he was just yelling at me when I fell at his bar.
Just assumed you were so drunk that you fell over.
Yeah, and so I'm like, dude, I can't move my legs. He's like, get the fuck up. Come on, I'm like, dude, I can't move my legs. And I could, obviously.
So you immediately went to, fuck this guy for yelling at me. I'm going to pretend I slipped and I'm paralyzed.
Yeah, and instead of like being... I always think, because it's like me being it's like how I get mad. It's not like I was like yelling back. Like, okay, I'll show you. It's like passive aggressive. And
so that's what you do. You're not like me. I'm aggressive. So like if I get mad, like you'll know.
Yeah.
But you're very much like, oh, this is how you want to play it? Okay.
Yeah, I know. I just don't even get mad that much. I hate confrontation.
Yeah. So you decided I'll pretend I'm paralyzed.
I think because I was
that'll show you.
I think I just drunk enough where I was like, this is how I'm going to deal with it. I don't fucking know.
This is how we're going to play it.
And so my buddy who I was with, who was in EMT school at the time, he runs up. He's like, dude, are you serious? Can you not move your legs? And I'm like, I can't move my legs. Like I tell him, and like he's in EMT school.
So you're all in on this.
Yeah.
line.
And he should have been like, don't move him.
Yeah.
Clearly. But they're like, no one was making good decisions. So the bouncer gets the other bouncer, and he calls him over. Is like, this. He says he can't move, and the other bouncers will like, let's get him. So they picked me up. One has my legs. One
should never do if someone falls.
Yeah, and
because you can like obviously you're in a situation where that's not the case, but like if someone's in an accident or really legit falls and you pick them up, you could fuck their spine sorts of up.
I feel like that's like common knowledge.
Yeah,
and
anybody who watches TV knows that.
Right. And my EMT buddy didn't. I just keep going back to him because I'm pissed about it. But so then they lift me up. They walk me through the bar, out a side door, down an alley to the front of the bar, across the street. We walk like a block down. Meanwhile, the whole time I'm just sitting there like I can't move my legs.
Yeah,
so I'm like fully committed.
You're fully committed to the role.
And they just set me on the sidewalk, and then just leave me there. And then the bouncers go back to the bar. And then, so this is like a scene in Bad Boys 2 where the kid is like ODing on ecstasy and they go, just get him out of the club. I haven't seen that, but that sounds right. Yeah. Like they put him in a fake ambulance, drive him like a block away and throw him out of the ambulance because they just don't want him to die at the club. Yeah, that's what it was. And that's part of why I bring up the underage thing. Yeah. Because I think they were like, oh, fuck, like this could really get us screwed. Yeah. Not only is this a lawsuit because he slipped, like if you were actually hurt, but also he's underage in a bar he's not even supposed to be in. Yeah, exactly. So they just drug you a block away from the bar and just left you? And just left me. Nobody called the ambulance? No, nothing? And my buddy at that point, he came out, and I was like, I told him, like, I'm fine. And so I don't even remember if we went back in the bar, what happened, but the next day... That would be hilarious if you walked back in like, hey, guys! I wish I had that vision to do that. But I was like pissed about the whole thing. And the next day, I literally looked up lawyers online thinking like, I'm going to fucking sue these people. Like this whole thing. And my buddy's like, dude, you're not paralyzed. So I was like, yeah, I guess like I can't be that mad. Yeah. Because you're not paralyzed. Right. You can walk, dude. But so I've done that before a couple times where you get so mad. Well, I have done that. But also, serious? Yeah. Oh, shit. When you get so mad at an establishment, you're like, fuck them. Like, I'm going to show them. Yeah. And then you, like, start to dig into it, and you're like, what am I doing? Like, this is stupid. Yeah. There was one time I don't know if I've ever told this story, but this is when I was blowing through that $26,000 in 28 days. I know I've told that story, but there was one night where I was drunk in my apartment, and it was on the second story. So it was downtown Daytona. It's basically all businesses, but one of these businesses had, like, a live-in apartment on the next story up. So I'm living in that live-in apartment, and it's not New York. It's downtown Daytona. So all the buildings are like maybe 2 or 3 stories high. That's it. So I'm in this apartment, and I remember I just was like so obsessed with attention,
And like I stabbed myself in the stomach one time because I wanted my girlfriend at the time to like drive all the way up from Miami to Daytona. So I was like, oh, if I stab myself and go to the hospital, she'll have to come see me.
That's something I've always wanted to do with my ex-girlfriends.
So fun fact, your brain, if you're cognizant, you will not allow you to stab yourself.
Oh, shit.
Like, you have to be all sorts of fucked up. And even then, like, I hit myself as I thought as hard as I could, and I barely stabbed myself. But, like, I was like, I'm going to go to the hospital and call her and be like, I got stabbed. Like, you have to come up. But anyway, there's a reason I'm sober now.
Crazy. Yeah.
But, yeah, so I'm 22 or 23, and I just loved, like, when everyone felt bad for me. Like, even if it was, like, I got wasted, like, obviously the stabbing thing and that. So, like, I remember thinking to myself, if I jump off the back door led out to almost like this balcony, but it wasn't even a balcony. It was basically just like a little deck that had stairs that went down. And I was like, if I jump off this deck, I could really hurt myself. So I was like, I don't want to jump off the deck because I could seriously injure myself, but I do want like the ambulance to come up and make a big show of it. Oh. So I walked down the stairs, called 911 on my phone, said I fell off my balcony, and then tossed my phone and was like yelling to my phone, like, help, help, this is where I am, and just pretended to be paralyzed. And then the ambulance showed up, and again, I'm hammered, and the ambulance shows up, and they go, did you fall? And I said, yeah. And they go, well, actually, we see people who fall all the time, and your trajectory is all off. Like, there's no way you would have fallen. Like, because of where I was in relation to the deck, they're like, there's no way you fell. Even if you jumped, you would have had to run and jump as hard as you could to get this far out.
Right.
And I was like, you got me. And they're like, we're leaving. Yeah. And I was like, all right. And it was like, it was one of those moments where it's like, what are you doing?
That's so funny.
But I also, to your point, have fake paralyzed.
Yeah, that's so funny. You also have a fake paralyzed story. I wonder if a lot of people have them, you know?
I mean, maybe if they drink like we're talking about, they might.
That's so funny.
But yeah, I was just like, I'm going to get everyone is going to feel so bad for me. And I literally had every intention of jumping off the balcony from the second story. But then when I looked down, I was like, this is kind of high. Maybe I'll just walk down there and lay like I fell. Yeah. And then when the ambulance shows up, I'll be like, oh my God, I'm paralyzed. And
were they like laughing at you? Or
they were pissed.
Right, because they had to.
Because I
do that.
Yeah, they had to stop everything they were doing. Right. Rush to my aid because they thought this fucking guy fell off a balcony. They don't know how high it was. They don't know anything. I'm just on the phone with 911 saying like I fell and I'm paralyzed. I think I'm paralyzed. So they were panicked. Like they came flying in the ambulance, and then as soon as they got out, they looked around and they were like, "The fuck's going on?" Right. Almost like, you know, when you think like you have this elaborate plan. And then as soon as someone shows up, they're like, what's happening? And you're like, God damn it. Yeah. So they just showed up and they were like, no. What happened? And they basically did that thing like when you're a kid and you get in trouble and your parents are like, what happened? Like they asked me like 3 or 4 times and finally I was like, all right, fine.
I bet they later laughed at it.
Yeah, they must have laughed at it later. Like I'm sure.
You believe that guy?
You know, this is 10 or 11 years ago, so I'm sure it's still a story that they share. Yeah, like, remember that one time we showed up? Yeah. They're doing a firefighter EMT podcast, and they're like, remember that one time we showed up and that fucking guy laid down on the ground and pretended like he jumped off his balcony?
That's so
What an asshole.
Dude, that's better. That's cooler than my story. Dude.
No, your story's good because you actually got people to believe you.
All right, you know, that's true. That's true.
As soon as they walked out of the ambulance, they were like, fuck you. But for you, they were like, oh my God, like we have to. They believed you so much that they wanted plausible deniability. Right. So they dragged you away from the bar.
Yeah, I always imagine that if they were like, oh fuck, this could really get us in trouble, so they just killed me. I know that's like, you know what I mean? They're like,
good.
That would be cool. Yeah, that's the exciting ending that didn't happen.
But that's like one of those things where it's like, that's really fucked up to think about, but it's true. Like that reminds me of so on one of the podcasts that I listened to, they played this audio clip of a guy. He recorded himself. These kids kept breaking into his house. So this guy actually recorded himself sitting in his basement. And then when they broke into his house, like he was so fed up with them, he basically executed them. And they're kids. They were like 16, 17 years old. And he recorded the whole thing. So the whole thing gets played in court. So now it's public record. So this podcast I listened to got a hold of the audio and they played it. But it's like what you're saying. Like, it's one of those things where these kids were just doing like kid shit, like being dicks.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, this guy killed them.
Oh shit.
So, but it's like what you're saying with your story. It's like, what if these bouncers were so freaked out that they just murdered them?
Right.
Like, that's not unheard of.
No, I guess not.
So now, like, talking about it, that can really get your brain going. Like, fuck, they could have just killed me.
Right.
Like, just stomped you in the face.
That's what I was thinking.
Like, just drug you out back and just fucking stabbed you in the neck.
Yeah.
And, like, as they're doing it, you're like, wait, I'm just kidding.
I start trying to kick. It's a miracle. That would be crazy. Wait, did you see the movie, this is a tangent, with the old blind man and the kids break into this house?
No, I know what movie you're talking about.
I didn't know if maybe that was like the basis of
Oh, I don't know. No, I don't think it was.
Don't Breathe. That's what it's a great movie, by the way.
Yeah, it's the guy from the guy from Avatar.
Yeah, that guy.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, I know what movie you're talking. They're coming out with another one.
Yeah, I'm not into it, but it's fine.
But the first one was good?
It's actually really good. Like, I didn't expect it, but it's intense. It's fucking dope.
Yeah, I'm not a big horror guy because I have enough anxiety just living my normal life.
Yeah.
That horror movies, I'm like, why would I give myself extra anxiety?
Fair.
That doesn't make any sense.
Fair enough.
Speaking of anxiety, you were trapped.
Okay.
So we want to tell this story.
Yeah, this will
be the last story that we tell. We'll wrap it up after this one because I know people are like, what the fuck is going on? They're all over the place.
They're paralyzed?
Pretending to be paralyzed, talking about murder.
Yeah. Like, that didn't even happen. Why are they talking about it?
Welcome to Ex Drinking Buddy.
Yeah. What happened? Okay, again, as in San Francisco. Earlier I set up my New York stories weren't as cool as my San Francisco stories.
Well, it's interesting because you talked about like when you first moved to New York, all you were doing was like drinking and partying, and then you had the tattoo stories, the stories about the PlayStation, and then you're like, yeah, but everything else happened in San Francisco.
Yeah, I think I did get better at drinking. I think I said that a few times already, but I think I was like fine. I mean, obviously I passed it on the ground. Anyway, I'll tell the story. You'll see.
So we're in San Francisco.
We're at a house party. Like,
so 19, 20, the same age range.
Yeah, I was. How old was? I was 20.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're at this house party, and I was drunk, and I got in. What, you know when like girls are rejecting you and you get in like a mood like, oh fuck them.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That I was in one of those modes, and earlier people were like going up to the roof, and so I was like, everyone had come down, but I'm like, I'm gonna go up to the roof. So I go up to the roof, and I'm just jumping from roof to roof. Like there wasn't like big gaps. So I'm like just walking around up there.
And these are houses, not apartments.
It's like apartments, like 2 stories. And like a few apartments down, I look down like in the middle of the building, and there's like a little courtyard area, and I'm like, oh, I could get down there because it wasn't that far, it wasn't that high, and so I like crawl over the edge. I'm like hanging by my hands, and I can't touch. So I'm like, oh fuck, this is deeper than I thought.
Yeah.
So I like try to pull myself up and I can't. So I drop.
Don't have that lat strength.
No, I didn't. And I dropped, and it was probably like a foot drop. But then I like realized how high it was, and I was
but
like,
now you're trapped.
Yeah, now I'm trapped. And like maybe in the past, like maybe at a time in my life I might have been able to lift up, but at that time I was like just drinking and partying.
Yeah.
And it was and I was drunk. So I turn around, I look around, and there's like a front door, and then a little courtyard area. And then it goes into a garage. And so I go into the garage.
So are you panicked at this point? Because you're basically trapped in this little courtyard.
Yeah, so at this point, I'm kind of like...
Fuck?
Yeah, no, I mean, I was hammered, so I was kind of just like... Thought it was kind of like, I'm like, what the fuck? I wasn't like panicking
because the only way
yet.
you can get out feasibly is if you wake someone up and be like, hey, I broke into your courtyard.
Yeah, and it wasn't like there was any way in besides through the garage.
Yeah.
So it was going to look bad.
So you were like in someone's house basically.
Yeah, basically.
God.
And so I go into the garage, and I'm looking for like a garage door opener. There is a back door in the garage, and I'm trying to open it, but it's locked, which I'm on the inside. So that didn't make sense, but I wasn't really thinking. So I'm like trying to open it. It's not working. So I call my buddy who was at the party, and I'm like looking out through the garage door, out the windows, and I see a car, and I'm like describing where I am. He's like, you're in a garage? And I'm like, there's a car. He's like, oh, I see it. And he's like, I look, and I like see him out there.
So you're looking out the garage window.
Yeah. And then I turn, I can't remember how, but I like turn back around. I come out of the garage, and a woman opens the front door.
Oh shit.
And she looks at me, and we just make eye contact, and I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to. Like, I try to explain, and she just goes, call the fucking police, and slams the door. And that's when I go into panic mode.
Yeah.
And so I fucking run back to the garage and I'm like, I'm going to fucking break down this door.
Yeah, because now at this point you just want to get out.
Yeah.
Survival.
Exactly. And then I'm like, that's when it hit me. I'm like, I'm on the inside. There's got to be a lock on the inside. And I look and there's like a latch on the bottom of the door, which I've never seen there's like a weird thing
sounds
anyway.
Yeah.
But so I fucking open it and just kick the door and then just go straight out the backyard and just start hopping fences. And I go through like 6 backyards before I go get out on the street. And then
are they tall? Are they like 6-foot fences or like regular?
Yeah,
fences?
they were tall.
Okay.
They were like where I'm fucking. And that's another thing where I look back. I'm like, there could have been dogs that attacked me. I could have ran through. It was just like all this bullshit. And I fucking
get out to the street.
Get on the street, and I call my brother, who I'm close with, and I had to tell someone I call him, and I just immediately started fucking crying.
Oh my God, really?
Burst out crying. I was like, it's in this woman's garage, blah blah blah. And my friend who was still back at the house, he said that the cops came and they pulled up and all like drew their guns and ran around the backyard looking for me.
Oh my God!
But by that point, I was fucking.
You were long gone.
I was long gone, and I made it home, and I was fine.
So did you go straight home, or did you go back to the park?
No, I went straight home. Like
Okay.
I was so fucking like rattled by it.
God, so that could have ended very poorly.
That's another one. Like I always think like the lady probably heard it. She's like, I bet it's nothing, but I gotta check.
Yeah,
but it could have been a guy with a gun. I mean, San Francisco isn't like that, but you never know. If our dude answer just tried to fucking beat the shit out of me, like there's like so many things.
Well, and that's the thing too, is that it's something that it's difficult in the moment to think of from the other side.
Right.
Because it's one of those things where it's like, this is innocent enough. I was drunk, like just kind of exploring, and I ended up here. But in their heads, they're like, this person could try to rob me, rape me, attack me. Like, I don't know what the fuck's going on.
Yeah.
But in your head, you're like, what? I was just a little drunk and I got lost, basically.
Yeah.
So it's always funny to think about, or not. I don't know if it's funny, but it's always interesting because it's like, oh, this could have gone very poorly.
Yeah, and I was dressed in all black too, which is never a good look when you're in someone's apartment or
when you're breaking
courtyard.
into someone's garage.
Yeah. I always think about her though, because they probably tell that story. Probably freaked her out forever.
They definitely still tell
where she's
that
like,
story.
what the fuck was that guy doing? I mean,
whenever
maybe
they hear a noise, they're probably like, fuck.
Yeah, that pasty white guy with the slicky hair. I don't know. Whatever I was dressed as back then.
God, well, this is fun, man. You've been on quite a few adventures.
I know. I like talking.
You don't
about
really
this
remember
shit.
them, but
No.
you've been on them.
I did it. Yeah, I was there where my brain wasn't. Or the opposite. The opposite.
Well, plug everything one more time. Where can everybody find you on Instagram?
Instagram, Cody.D.Lewis. I got my show, Hell Yeah Comedy. You guys come on Thursday in Williamsburg. Those are super fun. That's it right now.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for doing the show. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Brennan T Comedy on all social media, BrennanTComedy.com for upcoming dates, and then check out the Patreon, patreon.com/Brennan Tassif, and we'll talk to y'all next week.